Hi, all. Welcome to this episode of the Outcomes Podcast. I am excited to be joined with me today with Garrett Spradlin. He is joining us from Colorado. Garrett, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Garrett. I am currently the Assistant Director of Admissions for Graduate Recruitment at Colorado School of Mines, but going on my 15th year in higher education, kind of in a range of positions. So I appreciate being able to kind of share some knowledge and just from my experience and all those beginning stepping stones for a student's journey.
Yeah, welcome, Garrett. And I think one of the things that is really unique and special about your background is that you've really seen a wide spectrum from recruitment and admissions into marketing enrollment. Can you tell us a little bit more about how your role has evolved over time?
Yeah, it's really great. I think about this a lot because I'm thankful for my trajectory. But it's been one of those adventures where I wanted my education to match my experience, and that was my biggest struggle as I hit going into grad school for higher ed. I was like sitting there learning student higher ed theory. And it was really a struggle for me because I was then working in residence life, and so I was going back and working with students, and those theories for me weren't lining up with the real world of student experience. So it's been great that I've been able to work. Started as a tour guide in my undergrad. I would say that's probably most people working in their undergrad leading into higher ed. Student housing, student conduct, concurrent enrollment, admission, so the recruitment side, and then the events visit side, and now on the marketing side. So it truly is all those first stepping stones for a student, and I think I appreciate that the most. Um, but it's been really good, especially now in the recruitment side of marketing. It allows me to really know how are those pieces being used on the road, because I was out there, I was out in the field, I was doing the recruitment events and the college fairs and using those pieces. So it's a big impact now when I design something or a view book or any of those printed pieces that I can say, can a recruiter actually use this? And can a student use this? What is the purpose of this piece? Or does it get taken and thrown away? So we look at it from a new lens, I think, than just making it look great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's an area that you're clearly an expert in, and I would love to get into that a little bit further on kind of what makes a unique experience for students. But before we get there, you've had a very unique perspective joining very different types of higher ed organizations. Can you walk us through, public, private, large, small? What have you learned from each of the different environments that you've operated in?
Yeah, it's so funny because I wish I could narrow it down, and I really think I can. I can narrow it down to one thing that I've learned in all of those. Because I have worked like private small school, public large school, public medium size, and then privatized student housing, which is totally, they use those higher ed models, but then it's totally privately owned for student housing. So kind of a range, but really the experience for me that I tie in all together is there's no one path for a student. So that I think is a double-edged sword, right? It's the greatest thing that we sell, right? You can do it your way. It's flexible. Take 5 years, take 3 years, whatever that looks like. But I actually think human nature, we would rather have a rule that we could follow. So I think most people want to say, this is how you do it. Okay, I'll do it that way. So it kind of actually makes it more overwhelming from a student side to say, you can do it however you want. When really, I think what we're craving as people is to say, this is how you do it and laying out a roadmap for them. Um, so sometimes I challenge recruiters and myself to even say, let me take what they want and then give them how I would do it, right? So kind of flip it instead of letting them choose. Do you want to graduate in 4 years? Great, let's look at that. Oh, you didn't get into your top school. Okay, let's now look at the transfer path and let's give you the how to do it based on your journey. So I mean, yeah, for me, it's a range of schools and different ways. I would say higher ed's very similar no matter where you are. But from the student side, it's great to see that students have no path, which I think is great. Especially now, I work with a lot of the grad population, adult learners, people who have lives outside of the classroom, kids and families and jobs and those things. So there is a piece to it that, yes, it's flexible. You can do some online, you can do some in person. And I think those are great selling points, per se, from a marketing lens, but can be very overwhelming in the sense that it's like, no, just tell me what I need to do. What do you crave? Even when I get a email from Comcast, it's kind of like, no, you tell me what I need to do, not don't let me just guess.
Yeah, I agree with you completely on that. It's extremely overwhelming. I think see it a lot in the stackable credential space as well, where it's really hard to understand in 10 seconds. How does this work? What do I get along the way? How do I think about stacking it into an outcome? And I think
Yeah.
that you're spot on trying to create very clear and simple paths for folks, particularly when they're at their most vulnerable, trying to find the right big bet for them to take in their education. And I think the overwhelming feeling that students feel in the enrollment process is something that I think you've really tried to tackle proactively in your career. How do you help students navigate it with confidence?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece that I have learned and that I try to execute is really breaking the process down. Because when I look at it, right, we can give you a checklist of all the things you need to do, but that's a lot. There's a lot of steps from start to finish. And I think that's the hurdles that we've put in place as higher ed professionals, that can actually deter people from finishing, right? They may apply and then they never enroll. That yield, is what we always look at. And I think that's because there's so many steps. So how do we break that down? So even in the view book that I just recently did, it's kind of tabbed out, right? And that way, when I'm using it and talking to a student, I can say, this is a lot of info, but you're going to take this a step at a time. So let's get you through admission. So apply. Once you get through that, if we get in, let's worry about your financial aid piece. If we work on that, then let's turn to the housing side and figure out where you're going to live. So really that step by step, I think that's super important for any student. I would say even more so for our first gen students. I'm first gen. And being the first in your family to go to school, it's even more overwhelming because there's nobody to ask, like, how do I do this? And there's so many steps. I actually tell students the hardest part of college is all the pre stuff, the financial aid, the admissions, the housing. Once you're in and you go to class, it feels normal. You're back to your routine. This is actually the easy piece that you're used to. You know how to navigate this. So I just really say, how do we break that down versus throwing it all at someone and saying, okay, here's everything, and letting them figure that out. I mean, there's a piece to that is the hand holding side. Um,
Yeah.
but we don't have to be there, not necessarily every step of the way, if we can break it down, for them and let them go through those steps a little smoother, a little smaller, break the piece off. And I tell students too, that's the hardest part too, is sometimes you feel like you're in that waiting period, right? So it feels like you should be doing something. And it's okay. It's okay to apply and you're
Yeah.
just waiting for a decision. Like, this is where you're supposed to be in this process. And I know you want to keep doing stuff, but you just got to kind of take a breath at those moments and then we'll get you rolling again. And take a breath and we'll get you rolling again.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that's good feedback and advice in life in general. Like just break down a very complex thing into the only things that matter to get started, and check that off, then move to the next baby step versus trying to bite off the whole thing at once. I think one of the things that talking to you and talking with other institutions that we've seen play out is really kind of the dual enrollment program side and concurrent enrollment and really trying to make pathways a lot easier for students. What's your take on that? How is that impacting students from a college readiness standpoint, and does it help with that overwhelming feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I am a huge advocate of the concurrent landscape. It's really a game changer for students. It saves you time and saves you money. It gets you ahead of the game, and I think there's a piece to it that not only gets you ahead in your coursework, there's a piece to it that then you learn how to time manage and balance maybe a heavier course load before you're in the college scene. So you're kind of gaining a skill set that sets you up for success. So that's the other piece of it, right? You might take that class, um, and maybe you don't pass it and get the college credit, and that's okay. I think you've gained something else that prepares you for the college experience. But really, when I was working in the concurrent enrollment world, there's a little bit of resistance to it. I think from maybe from parents, from students. I don't know quite where that stems from, but it's one of those things. Especially when I met some of the instructors that are at the high schools, getting credentialed to teach those courses at college level, there are some incredibly experienced and talented high school instructors that have way more credentials than even some of our college professors that are teaching those courses. So, I mean, it's great that they've chosen to go in a high school route of education and can kind of bring some of their experience and knowledge in, and you're learning it early on. I mean, I saw students walk out of high school with their associate. So, it's pretty incredible what you can do now to get ahead and not spend 4 years, you know,
Yeah.
within the 4 year realm. Or maybe your associates is all you're after, right? It just sets you up for success to walk out the door and kind of get into the career field of whatever you're looking at. And some of those technical career fields I think are so important, especially in the concurrent world.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I think the biggest thing that I think is under stressed is just the sunk cost and on time that it takes to graduate with a 4-year degree. I mean, it's very, very difficult to map your earning potential while you're actively enrolled in an undergrad institution
Yeah.
over an entire 4-year span. I mean, being able to cut 2 years down, being able to save on tuition costs for that, coming out ahead at high school graduation is just very, very helpful for a lot of folks. I agree with you. I think it's a trend that I hope keeps maturing and keeps getting more funding at the state levels because I think it creates a fantastic impact for students. And I think kind of along that spectrum, I mean, going back to, okay, I now have an interested student in my degree or in my university. How do you create a warm, differentiated experience? I mean, what we've talked about is a lot of schools doing very, very similar things. Campus visits haven't changed much in years. How do you tackle that head on? How do you stand out?
Yeah, I am a believer that the strongest piece of the recruitment process is customer service. At my previous institution, I mean, I really used to bring in the Disney customer service model, and I know it's
Mm,
not identical, but it's one of those things that works, right? And I would even, with my tour guides, when I was part of visits and events, it's little things, right? Like you guide with your hand, you don't point. Some of those things that are just taken into consideration for a number of reasons that still work. I developed to a large, probably like most institutions, a large like handbook, right, that students received when they were starting the process of being a tour guide or part of visits or part of our front desk and welcome center experience. And it was 200 plus pages, right? It's all the info about the school and the history, and then it's also all the policies and how you put in your schedule and all the things you have to have. But at the very, very front page of that book, I put in one rule, and I stole this from a different speaker that used to oversee a bunch of hotels. Um, but he said the rule is support our guests, support each other. That's it. Support our guests, support each other. One rule, like the golden rule, right? So no matter what you took from this whole book, that was it. Support our guests, support each other, and then I was there to support them. So really, really
mm.
simple rule of like, if we were to break down this whole book into one thing, I just want you to support our guests, support each other. And so I reiterate that to them all the time. And they signed that page and turned it back in. And I told them my role then is to support them, right? So that they have someone too. But if we can do that, then the whole book is we're gold. So I really think that customer service side is huge. Um, and how do we, like we said too, how do you make the experience different or better or unusual from another school? The average number of visits or campuses that students are visiting can be six, seven, eight schools. And so, what stands out and what do they want to see? And does every tour feel the same? Are we saying the same thing? Like, here's the library. Yep, we've seen this every time. So, what is it that makes that library more than just books?
I think you're spot on. I mean, the intangible people experience at these universities and colleges is the thing that stands out. I mean, I went to James Madison University, and our thing on campus was that we'd hold the doors open for everyone. So if you see someone
Yeah.
coming behind you, you hold the door open, and it's such a cool feeling when you're on campus walking around. Even now, like everyone just holds the door for each other. And I moved to New York after that, and that was a wake up call. Nobody holds the door
Nobody
open
wants
for
to.
you. But it created a very different intangible experience that you can't just put in a print material or on the website. It gets the feeling of the campus. So I think that's great advice. And I've got one last question for you. So you take a look at next year. There's a ton of things changing, right? You're balancing likely shifts in international student volume, potential shifts in grad plus loans, and those kind of falling off. You have a huge advent of AI and continued focus from more technical skill sets. What is one thing that you would advise, universities and colleges to focus on next year?
Oh gosh. Can I narrow it down to a couple things? I think about this.
Absolutely.
Um, I always try to look through a different lens, and I say I approach things probably differently than most, just trying to think through how to do things. The number one thing that I think, and I haven't mastered this either. We haven't, I can't say I'm doing this 100%. I think we need to make communications shorter. Um,
Mhm.
I think attention span is down. I think even right if you put something into Chat GPT, your response is relatively short, and that's what you want. You want a straight to the point shortness. I've tried different things on emails like the bluff, the bottom line up front, which is a military state. They use that in their top line. That's where it was developed. Of like the who, what, when, where, why, right up front. What am I getting ready to read through this email for? Like, what is the actual purpose? But I mean, imagine if a university in their presentations and in their recruitment could say, every email you get from us will take you under a minute. Like, what if we could actually tell students that and train them that when you look at an email from us, it's short enough, it's going to take you 60 seconds. Would you be more willing to read every email we're sending you and do the tasks at hand? So I wish we could get to that place and do things like that. I don't know if I quite have the buy-in anywhere to do that, but that's the goal. I mean, my goal is something like that we can sell that says this is easier. What do I need you to do? Um, Higher ed professionals, they love to put all the stuff. I always say our like emails are biblical because they're so long.
Yep.
Because they want all the things in there, right? We can tell students like, well, it was in the email, but just saying it was in the email does nothing. It does absolutely nothing. Uh,
I know. I think folks are really looking for like, what is this single thing that I need to do at a given point in time, and that's it. That's all I want to think about mentally. I don't want to read, multiple paragraphs in an email. I think you're spot on with that, and
and
yeah, I do think,
tell me if I'm gonna
yeah,
read something that's fluffy and great about a previous student, or is it something I actually need to do to make the process keep
yeah,
going?
yep,
I
yeah,
also
that makes sense.
I also think about we've recently talked about like our website and other tools, right, that every school is using. Um, and I say think about things from the student lens. Like I was asked what the website should be to a student, and a lot of times, everyone in the room says it's a resource, it's a search tool, it's a way to connect, and all very very true. For me, I think about those things like the website to me is the Tinder of schools. I want students to go to 10 different websites of schools and they're going to decide I'm going to swipe left or swipe right. And they're looking for the same things like they do on Tinder, like looks and money and things that they can see. And then that first date is the campus visit, right? Are you going to come and do you want to meet us for that first date? So maybe you come visit campus. And does it look the same as the pictures and the same process? And then maybe you need a second date, which is one of our like event days and visit days. Like, why would I come back and visit again? Well, because sometimes you need a second date. Sometimes you need a little bit of longer experience to know if this is where you want to commit to. And so I really try to look at it of like, how do we use these analogies of things that are actually happening? The students are using apps all the time. Um, and are you going to swipe right to come here? And are we showing you something that gets you here? And then when you visit campus, can you see yourself here? Is this the place for you? And maybe it's not, and that's okay too. I think that's what we have to reiterate to students more is that it's okay. It's okay to go somewhere and maybe you don't love it. And maybe that's just the visit, or maybe that's your first semester. Again, going back to that, there's not one path. You can go wherever you want and transfer out and transfer in, and that's I think becoming more and more common because I think the generation we're in is the finding your fit, not gonna settle, life fulfillment. I'm part of that millennial clan for sure of finding life fulfillment piece out of your career and path. So I think that's a big piece.
Yeah, that's great advice, Garrett, and I really want to thank you for joining on today. Really appreciate the time and great advice across the board. Thanks for joining on.
Yeah, thanks, James. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.